I'd like to introduce our project for our Appalachian Leadership Lab, and we have Robin Hyden, who really spearheaded our work, and Misty Ward here, who is assistant principal at Central Elementary. Robin teaches at Central Elementary, and I'm the innovation coordinator at the district office, and I'm Noel Crum. And really what I just want to do first was give you just a quick background and lead in that, in Johnson County we've tried to have a pretty strong focus on developing leadership and tried to work towards that, but we've really never had a model at our fingertips that is quite as effective and amazing as the Appalachian Leadership Lab. And it started last year, and it's under the work of Jennifer Carroll, who just does an outstanding job of trying to organize and bring things together. But the neat thing about the Appalachian Leadership Lab, for those of you that aren't aware of the work, is that it's a clinical-based type research to help develop shared leadership. And I think we all know now and today that shared leadership is what makes schools effective. Not just schools, it makes businesses effective. It makes, the models out there, if you look at the most successful companies across the board, there's a shared leadership model. And so this is built around and on those foundations. And so the process that we'll describe here will really show how we evolved and how this whole project took shape. And I will go ahead and give it over to Misty, and she can give you a little background about that.
Evolved is a good word as far as what we have done with our work. We started out with the idea that we were going to do an expansion into student leadership, and we're not abandoning that by any means. We've gotten some things going, but what we found was in Johnson County, we have always embraced the idea that we will approach everything with urgency, and if our teachers need something, we meet them where they are to meet that need. And one of the things that we found is, as soon as all of the discussion about the through course tasks started to come up, our teachers were experiencing quite a bit of anxiety and were concerned about how we were going to implement this process. And so we decided, even though it was a little farther in the process than we had first intended, that we would change our project for the Appalachian Leadership Lab from that the spreading to student leadership, into looking at these implementation of the through course task, and that's what Ms. Hyden is going to talk to you a little more at length about. Go ahead and the next slide.
Okay, so as part of the Appalachian Leadership Lab, this was my first year, and we've been coming and having our monthly meetings, and the very first thing that we had to do whenever we met last summer at Natural Bridge was we had to talk about our problem of practice. Well, our school this year is a newly blended school, and so we thought that leadership was one of the main things that we wanted to focus on with us being a newly blended school. And so we decided to do the Leader in Me, because we have some other schools in our district that are Leader in Me schools, and we wanted to kind of take those goals and those things that they had going on and implement those into our school. Well, so I wrote a grant to try to get the Leader in Me books, because we were going to do a book study on that. So I wrote what I thought was an excellent grant, and unfortunately that grant did not get funded. So one day whenever I was up there, I was talking to Dr. Jeff Hawkins, and he said, "Robin, let's talk a little bit more about what you were doing." He said, "First of all, you were using a program that's already been in place. It's not really innovative." He said, "And the whole goal of the Appalachian Leadership Lab is to do new creative things that are innovative into your classrooms." So Jennifer Carroll and I sat down and we talked about some things that I was working on in my doctoral work, and we talked about the science through course tasks and the next generation science standards. And I told her a little bit about what I was doing for my capstone project, and she said, "Robin, that is an excellent idea. Let's focus more on that." So then that very same day, she took me to the next room where I got to know Chris Bentley and Johnny Belcher, and they had the whole ELF thing going on with the science. So that was one thing that I really loved about being part of the Appalachian Leadership Lab, is because there is always somebody that is got great expertise on whatever it is that you're working on that can help you further advance your project. So go ahead and... Okay. So what we talked a little bit about in our district was the through course task. And everybody who is a teacher in a classroom has had to implement that this year. And so what we did find was our teachers were a little anxious about the whole next generation science standards, because if you've read those, there are a lot of gray areas. It can be perceived as this way, or it can be perceived as another way. So what I thought we could do is develop a site where we could house our examples of through course tasks, because anybody who's familiar with Share Faith, it's our what's it called? SharePoint. It's very hard to access. It's kind of confusing unless you have that email that's right there that your district person has sent you. And then another thing that we use a lot of is OneDrive. And if you're familiar with OneDrive, you know that is not the most effective way that is user-friendly to house things. So I thought, let's come up with a site. So you click on that.
Being a Mac, it's a little different.
Is it by the trash can?
You escape the, oh, there you go. Now, can you control click that? I won't let you take the hyperlink. Is it open down in the, so where did it open in Safari?
I thought it was, is it down there by the trash can?
But,
Nope, that's not it.
go to Safari, ma'am.
There we go. Yay. So here we go. So what I took upon myself to develop a next generation website house that we could use to house all of our resources. You know, we have worked in our district really, really hard to find resources, to find materials, to develop units, to have pacing guides. And we have housed all of that on OneDrive. And so OneDrive can be a little confusing. And so I thought this would be so much easier, because in our district, we already use Google Sites for many things. We use it to house materials that we're using for program reviews and a lot of other things. So I thought, what better way than to house our science stuff that we're using? So if you look, I've developed this web portal that we can use. And if you look up here, click up here. So this is more user-friendly. So what people, all they have to do is get on here, go to their grade level, just click kindergarten, for example. So they can go to their kindergarten standards, and if you scroll down and you'll look through here, you'll see that these are the different domains that's listed for those NGSS standards. And so we've got different links up here. I've got a professional development link. If we find really good videos about how to implement something to our classroom, we can just drop and drag it into that professional development link that you see up here, and then click that little T that's right there. Okay, and then I also have a whole web page that is devoted to our through course task. I've got a place where we can upload our work samples, because we had to have that on file, so many per grade level. And then down here, I've got a direct link to the TCT video web series that we made. And then this is our TCT resource bank, which will take you to the SharePoint, thank you, website. So this is what we developed with our in our Appalachian Leadership Lab, because the whole goal of the Appalachian Leadership Lab is to build something or create something or innovate something that will be more useful in your school district. And so I thought something like this that everybody can access at any point in time would be more beneficial than trying to dig through their emails and find that email that was sent out on this day or Google someone's name. So I thought this would be so much easier, more convenient, and hopefully will be more used than just OneDrive.
And as far as like the third grade TCT, one of the things that we found was on SharePoint, some of the maps weren't there. And so we had to go create the maps and figure them out that way. And so those can be added to your resources. So next year, our third grade teachers won't have to remake those maps. So our goal, again, is just to help our teachers through this process. And I think, are we ready for questions? Any questions? Well, the way in Google Sites, that's a very good question, because in Google Sites you can set up your editing different ways. You can have it to where anybody can view it, but then you can give only certain people
editing privileges. And so the way that I have this set up is I have that people within the Johnson County district that's on the Johnson County server, then they can go in and they can upload, they can edit, they can add, they can take away. But people that are outside of the Johnson County School District can only view. You see? Any other questions? Several hours. It's not hard, because Google Sites is one of the easiest web page design builders that you will ever use. It's just getting everything hyperlinked, getting everything cut and pasted and added in. You know, it's not hard, it's just time consuming.
And we have very young students who are manipulating Google Sites and doing it in some ways much easier than I can do it, even because I'm learning it. But we have, you know, 3rd and 4th graders who can go on and manipulate Google Sites very easily. So if it's not something you're using to create right now, you should. It's super easy, very adaptable to really any environment.
Mm-hmm. And see, one thing that I didn't mention is, you know, like every other district probably in Kentucky, is our district is a Google-based district. So whenever you log in with your email address, all you have to do is go up into the little waffle icon there at the top, just click Sites, and every site that you have access to is already there. So there's no logging in multiple times to different sites. There's no searching. There's no digging. And, you know, us as teachers, we are professional hunters. We can hunt anything on to anything. So I thought, you know, if we had something that's like this, that's more effective, that people can just log in using one username, one account, and everything's already right there for them, then it'll be so much easier to navigate. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.